So, Casey, as a federal court just ruled that Google illegally monopolized key parts of the digital ad market by tying its ad server and ad exchange. This decision could reshape how ads are bought, sold, and priced, and marketers should really take notice of this. What does this ruling mean for marketers, and quite frankly, how does it impact their industry?
Yeah, so I mean, for marketers, I think this is a pretty big deal. This ruling that was just passed down by the federal courts, it challenges Google's control over a major part of how digital ads are bought and sold. And what it really comes down to is how much power Google has in the process. So, a quick analogy that I think helps bring it into clarity would be if in stock trading, if E-Trade were the biggest platform that stock trading professionals use, like let's say 99% of traders use it. But on top of that, E-Trade also owns and runs the New York Stock Exchange. And then they say, you can only trade on our platform if you also use our exchange. And if you want to go through NASDAQ or any other exchange, it'll be slower, more expensive, and probably blocked entirely. That was kind of what was going on in ad tech. And basically, the court said that Google was unfairly tying its ad server, which publishers use to manage all of their ad sales, to their own ad exchange. And what that means going forward is that, we could see more transparency coming into this space, more options for both publishers and advertisers. Frankly, I think it's going to have a bigger impact on the publisher side of the business, but it will all trickle down to advertisers and agencies. In long term, I think it's going to really shake up what that ecosystem looks like. I think for media buyers and agencies, we could see a real shift. Media buyers might get sort of more access to other demand side platforms, ad exchanges, especially ones that really couldn't compete with Google's built in advantages. One of the big issues on the buy side for programmatic is something called last look in an auction. Basically, Google's exchange could see the other bids before placing its own. And that gave them a serious competitive edge and kind of skewed the auction in their favor a little bit. So now we might see sort of fair playing field, more clarity around fees and auctions and how that all really works. And ideally, we're hoping to gain more trust in the process because right now, a lot of agencies and media buyers don't have a lot of trust in that entire process. We'll finally start to see more innovation in the space because I think others who are a little reticent to get involved in innovating because of Google's dominance will now have a little bit more faith in themselves.
Well, that's a good transition because I have to imagine with this change, it's going to open the door for a lot of new or smaller ad tech players. What are some of the things they could be excited about?
So I think if you're a marketer, now's a good time to start paying attention to new partnership, explore your options. There's going to be new tools hitting the market, alternative supply paths might be open, and likely there's going to be more transparency over time, which I think is the key. So as an agency, we're always focused on staying on top of the latest industry trends in tech, and we think it's really important to share that perspective with our clients. So trust in your partners, talk to the people that you're working with, particularly in the programmatic side of your media buying. And really, this ruling could provide a chance to test some diversification. And it's really a good reminder not to be too dependent on a single ad tech stack, especially if it's limiting your options at all.
So we know a lot of marketers are relying on their agencies to support them through this process. So what can they expect from their agencies? How can they prepare for themselves to understand what these impacts are? And when can they actually start to see some changes go into action?
I think there's a few things marketers can actually be doing now and thinking about the future. In the short term, not a ton is going to change overnight. Realistically, legal battles here are the appeals are going to stretch into probably 2026, maybe even beyond. We all know that this is likely going to take a long time to play out. But, and the key thing here is that smart marketers should prep now to make sure that they're on top of things for when ultimately the ecosystem does have a shift. So look at things like your media strategy. How much do you rely on Google's ad stack? Test out some other DSPs, other exchanges. Even small test budgets can give you valuable insight. It's something that we try to bake into our learning agendas with clients and make sure that we're iteratively testing, including the exchanges that we're using in the inventory sources. And then if you're a brand or agency, ask your partners about things like supply path optimization. It's not something that they love to talk about because it's a challenging discussion to have and I think can be tricky. But those are questions that are really important for brands and agencies to be having with partners that they're working with in the ad tech space.
And Casey, I have to imagine, it's not just for our clients. If anyone out there is just looking for some advice, can reach out to you and just get some more information, correct?
Absolutely. My team and I are always happy to have these conversations. Like I said, we live and breathe this. We're always trying to stay on top of what's happening in the industry, and we're always willing to have a chat.